you, I have never seen a more thorough audit process in engine overhaul shops ever.
Hey, I'm Eric Crawford here with James of Watson Aero, and I came down from Boise, Idaho. This is actually my power plant that him and his team are overhauling, and I wanted to have a little conversation with him about overhauls, about what's involved, talk a little bit about the company itself and him, and learn a little bit about and share with you guys, because I know for me, when I first started looking at overhaul, I didn't know anything, and I was looking for information, couldn't find it. Hopefully this will be that information that you guys need as you're looking for an overhaul. Tell me a little bit about you and what got you here.
Okay, so my name is James Watson. Again, I'm the owner of Watson Aero here in Louisville, Georgia. How I got into aviation was in 2009, which would have been right when I graduated high school. Showing my age here a little bit.
Wow, I'm old.
Yeah. My stepfather, Pierre Smith, was a career crop duster out here in Louisville. So in 2009, I started out as one of the loader boys on his crew. In 2010, Pierre got me hired on with an aircraft mechanic over in Sandersville, Georgia, which is about 30 minutes from here, who specialized in construction of experimental aircraft, mainly vans, RVs. So I worked there from 2010 to early 2014.
Okay.
We built vans, RVs. I was involved in the construction of, 6s, 7s, 8s, 9s, 10s. And right about the time I left, the RV-14 kit had just become available, so we did a 14 as well.
Oh wow!
I got my A&P out of that hangar. I never actually went to a formal A&P school. I did a 30-month apprenticeship, which the FAA does consider to be an acceptable form of training.
Okay.
For airframe and power plant combined, you do 30 months of training. And you can go sit for your A&P exams at a place like Baker's School, in Nashville, which I think is a pretty popular place for people to go to. I went to Baker's for my A&P and my inspection authorization to it. Okay. I have been running my own shop, Watson Aero, here in Louisville since June of 2015, so we're almost 8 years in to running my own shop. I've been involved in engine overhaul for 14 years.
So as I was going through this, I noticed that each shop was slightly different.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say? What would you say in a kind of 30,000 foot level? What's kind of signature of Watson? What makes Watson Aero Watson Aero?
The FAA has a very ambiguous definition of what overhaul is.
Exactly what James is saying. That's what I noticed when I saw overall prices ranging from 30-ish thousand to 90,000. Very, very different experiences, and what you're actually getting with that overhaul.
There are certain parts that are made by PMA manufacturers. Not all of these engine parts are created equal. We have, we end up with potential warranty claims. Okay. We have learned that in assembling a Lycoming engine, we only run Lycoming OEM heavy wall piston pins and pin caps. In our experience, Lycoming piston pins seem to be the best made. So they cost more to run, but because we've had problems with aftermarket pins in the past, we have learned we spend the extra money, we get the good Lycoming OEM piston kit. Lycoming manufactures their own camshafts and camshaft tappets. As well as Continental under their Prime product line and Superior Air Parts also manufactures camshafts and tappets. Lycoming has what's called a DLC coating on their tappet faces, which in our experience has proven to have better wear resistance than the ones that come from Continental or Superior. We spend the extra money, we buy the Lycoming OEM camshaft, we buy the DLC coated tappets, and we do that automatically. A lot of shops, and I cannot speak to which shops you reach out to, the cost variables, but I will tell you that, for more than likely on, one of your overhauls that's kind of running on the cheaper end of things, you're probably going to get a reground camshaft. One thing I would caution any potential aircraft owner who's thinking of having an engine overhaul done is asking the shop, what tolerance do you follow when you overhaul engines?
Well, and that brings up one thing that I did notice, that during my interviews of other shops, there were multiple that I spoke with that said, yeah, we will overhaul your power plant within service limits.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they said. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like I didn't know otherwise at the time. I'm like, well, isn't that it's a service, right?
Right.
But there's a new spec and a service spec.
There's a new spec and a service spec.
So good to know when you're looking at those overall shops to find the one that's the right fit.
And another thing, to that point is when you're dealing with a shop who's kind of going to tether more in the kind of basic overhaul, if you will. Mm-hmm. Again, more than likely they are going to quote the overhaul with a reconditioned camshaft and tappets. And again, I'm not saying anything negative about a reconditioned camshaft and tappets. There are some engine models out there where new camshafts are not available, so you have to run used camshafts. This particular one is not one of them, but a lot of your kind of older Continental engines, your 0300s, your A65s, kind of your smaller Continentals, they don't produce those camshafts anymore. Okay. So you have to get a reconditioned camshaft.
But speaking in situations
but this one here, you can get a brand new Lycoming camshaft all day long. But where it can potentially come into play is that when you get the engine in for overhaul and the engine is disassembled, what can happen is if the camshaft is worn, and I'll use your engine as an example. You brought your engine to me because your camshaft was worn. It was very obvious. There was metal in the filter, and if I remember correctly, you bore scoped it a little bit as well, didn't you?
Yeah.
Let's say yours, for example, it has a worn camshaft. We knew that going into it. But if you get a basic overhaul, what can happen is when the engine gets torn down, all of a sudden the shop's coming back to you saying, "Well, your camshaft's no good. You got 6 spalled tappets. Now we have to replace the camshaft. Now we have to replace the tappets. So your bill just went up." Or here's another example. Let's say your crankshaft is corroded a little bit. Now that crankshaft has to be turned undersized anyway to restore new limit running clearances. Well, your bill just went up again. That's about $1,000 process right there. Yeah. So one thing, if I could say 2 things,
if I could touch on that there. So you're saying that when that happens, and I guess I don't think I should talk about this on my power plant, but you're saying when you encounter one that has that, that may need that additional $1,000, are you saying that at Watson, that's just part of the overall cost? Or
that is just part of the overall cost here. If you bring your engine to me and the camshaft is trash, I don't care. Yeah. We're replacing it anyway.
Yeah. And so it sounds like then that is definitely one of the parts that makes Watson Aero different, is that rather than saying, hey, we're, whatever the number is, we're X, and then there'll be these upcharges, you just go, hey, we're gonna be here, we're not gonna bother you, we're just gonna, we're gonna end up having these things that will probably be needed on your power plant, but we're not gonna send you another invoice for it.
Right.
We're gonna say, we told you it's gonna be this much, unless we need a whole new crank, or unless we need a whole new case.
Correct. Yes.
Other
than
than that,
2 good examples of when we would be calling you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you asked me that. So, the way that we operate our business here is that we are a very small shop. Okay. We currently employ a total of 3 mechanics. Okay. 1 part-time engine teardown guy, and 1 administrative person. Okay. So we are still, 8 years later, a very small shop. With that being said, we are not a company that kicks out 10, 20, 30, 40 engines a week, a month, whatever. We kick out probably 4 engines a month. Okay. And so, obviously, we're not doing the numbers as a lot of these larger shops are that have 30, 40, 50, 60 employees, and we have no intention of ever expanding to.
And that was my next question. Where do you want to be? But it sounds like maybe where you're at is where you like being.
So the reason that I like being where I am right now is because 8 years later, even though our numbers have gone from, doing 15 to 20 engines a year to right now we're at about 50 engines a year. Okay. And that's honestly kind of where I'd like to stay at, because 8 years later, I still hand assemble every engine that comes through here. Okay. Every single one. I still test every engine that comes through here. Okay. And most importantly, because I run a small business, I appreciate getting the small business treatment, if you will. Yeah. Let's say you have a question about your engine and you decide that you want to call Watson Aero, and you just Google Watson Aero real quick and you get the phone number. That phone number is my cell phone number.
That's why you always answer when I call.
Yes.
It doesn't go through a switchboard.
When you call Watson Aero, you're not going to get a receptionist that's going to patch you through to somebody whose voicemail you're going to get 3 times and they're never going to call you back. Or they might call you back the next day.
Yeah.
You're going directly to me.
Yeah.
I do not want to expand to a point where I can no longer offer that level of quality and service to any client that works with me. So with that being said, you know, if working with a small business like that is not a good fit for you as an individual, then Watson Aero might not be the best company to hire for your engine overhaul.
Yeah.
But if you want to talk to the guy who's actually building the engine, I think we would be a good fit for you. We have learned over the years that certain products have a higher risk of leading to potential warranty claims and trouble with the engine after it leaves here.
Okay.
And so we intentionally avoid certain products because we don't want to run that risk of ending up with a warranty claim.
Okay.
So with that being said, some of these parts cost more money.
Right.
We price that in up front, which is why if you reach out to Watson Aero, and when you reach out to Watson Aero, you will be reaching out to me. I do all the quoting too.
Yeah.
We're probably not ever going to be the lowest priced overhaul, but we have learned what products are going to give us a higher probability of yielding a good final product, what parts might not. And we've learned what those parts cost, and we price our overhauls accordingly. We're not, as you said, you know, there's $30,000 and there's $80,000 overhauls. That doesn't mean that there's one shop doing a $30,000 overhaul that's making $50,000 worth of profit. But they're putting more stuff into their product. It just depends on what you as the end user are kind of looking for in a final product.
Yeah, very true.
So leading to that, because again, we are a small business, you know, we are not cranking out 300 to 400 engines a year. You know, every engine that I overhaul here with the help of my fantastic team that I have working with me is a flying advertisement, for better or worse.
Well, especially when you're actually literally putting your name on
the
engine.
There's no getting away from it now.
Yeah.
For us, because we're a small business and because we do such a small amount of overhauls, reputation to me is not important, it's essential.
Yeah.
And so I'd be lying to you if I said that, you know, over the 8 years that we've been doing this, that we've never had any warranty claims, because it's just not true. I mean, we're all human, and most of it has been just parts that wore out prematurely, which would be subjected to a warranty from the parts manufacturer, which we've never had trouble with that. You know, they've always stepped up and taken care of the product. However, at the end of the day, it's still on us as the overhaul shop to step up and say, okay, well, this is our bad. You know, we'll handle it on our end and try and get the product supported by whoever manufactured it or overhauled it in some cases. But we value our reputation far too much to ever screw anybody over. Now, we do offer a 2-year, 500-hour warranty, which is not the best warranty in the industry. However, we have had a couple different instances over the years where someone might come back to us and say, hey man, you know, I'm having this going on, or you know, there's a little bit of metal in my filter or whatever it is, you know, I'm past the 2 years, you know, we had one come in 2.5 years. Okay. And so even that point, I mean, you know, from a legal standpoint, we have no warranty obligation. However, what I've always asked myself is, if I were on the other side of this coin, how would I want to be treated? Now, with that being said, I mean, is it going to be a 100% warranty support after the warranty period is over? No. But we always sit down and evaluate, how would we want to be treated in this situation? What is a resolution that is fair to both parties? And we always do our best to try and meet the customer's needs in that regard. Because what we have found is that any bad situation, which is going to, no matter who you are, eventually arise. You're going to deal with bad situations in business. How you respond to them tells you everything that you need to know about that business owner. I think as a small business owner yourself, I think you would agree with that. Absolutely. You know, it's not if, it's when things go bad. Did this guy step up and take care of me, or did he tell me to go pack sand? Yeah. You know? Absolutely. So I think, you know, I feel very strongly about taking care of the customer. So I'm always going to do the best of my ability to take care of the customer. But with that being said, I have learned over the years there are certain products we might want to avoid, because we might be a little bit more likely to have stay away from them. Because then I'm on the hook for them. You know, changing out a piston pin might not be that big of a deal until it caused metal to show up in the filter. Now we have a much bigger issue because of a piston pin. Absolutely. So that's that right there, I think, is what kind of sets us apart. Is that when you go to Watson Aero, you're always going to have the small business treatment, if you
Yeah.
will. You're gonna talk direct to me every time. I'm going to be the one who hand assembles your engine, and because I very much value my reputation, am going to take care of you to the best of my ability.
Yeah. I have two things that I did want to add, at least for me, that were different with Watson Aero. One of them for me that maybe seemed like a small thing for you. One thing that was big for me when I was selecting shop was that Watson Aero ships the crate to wherever your power plant is and covers the shipping both directions. For me, that was really big because as much as some shops would say, well, you can just build your own crate and ship it, what made me nervous was then, okay, so I go and spend $50,000 on an overhaul, and then my crate breaks that I built, and now I have an engine that is in pieces or now needs repair.
I never actually thought about that. But yeah, okay.
Because it was one of those where $1,000 one way or the other. I've never built an engine crate before, so I don't know exactly how it should be. My A&P has, but frankly, he doesn't want to go get a chop saw and plywood and start cutting up a crate. You know exactly where they need to be supported. You know exactly how big the wood needs to be, how many screws are needed, all of that. And so for me, that was a big thing. Okay. The other thing that I wanted to share that I think is really important to touch on with you is your schedule. You quoted me, and I may be remembering this incorrectly, but it was plus or minus 12 weeks. It was right, maybe it was 12 to 16 weeks.
12 to 14.
12 to 14,
there,
12 to 14 weeks, and you're hitting right on it. I mean, he's right on the schedule. And so for me, there were some people that quoted shorter, that seemed like unreasonably short, and then there were some that are literally quoting a year and a half. And so that was a big thing for me, was that you're able to look at the schedule and go, hey, here's where I'm running. I'm going to be micromanaging these suppliers to make sure that your power plant keeps moving through the process.
We mainly have to adjust our lead time according to what it's taking them.
Yeah.
So if we tell you 14 weeks for an overhaul, it's because it's going to take every bit of 12 weeks to get our, case and all that back. But if all of a sudden they start turning their stuff in 6 to 8 weeks, well then, okay, we'll readjust and we'll go back down to 8 to 10 weeks,
Yeah. Well, unless maybe this video, then you get 100 people calling now saying, you're a year and a half out.
That's right.
Yeah. Gosh, James, I really appreciate you having me down.
Yeah,
I appreciate you taking the time. Yeah, this has been super cool. I love seeing my power plant. I think it looks amazing. So that anyone watching knows, there isn't anything custom on here. We're talking, you sent me some photos, and I said, oh, well, how much extra is that? And you said, well, no, that's just how they look. That's just our look. That's what we do. We're a small shop, so we can personalize them. And so, literally in early January, James reached out to me and said, well, what colors do you want? So my plane has a blue accent, so I did the blue. I like the gold. I just like that combination. I have kind of a gunmetal. I'll post a picture here of the valve covers. And yeah, I mean, anything else you'd like to share? Did I miss anything?
No, I think you covered the bases really well. As you said, I mean, this kind of research and data has, to my knowledge, and I could be wrong, to my knowledge, has never been compiled into one, very digestible document or series of documents. I think you're doing a lot for aircraft owners, not just in the PA-32 group, but in other airframes as well, who can take the data that you've seen or compile and look at your experience and say, okay, well, he was really happy with Watson Aero, but maybe my needs aren't necessarily what James Watson is talking about.
Yeah, and I completely agree. And I think that you bring up a really good point, and it's what you touched on earlier, that I think it's really important that when you're looking, at an overall shop, that you make sure, and one of the biggest things I realized through this journey, to make sure that it is a good relationship, that they're the right fit for what you're going after. And I want to say that, I'm really excited to get this power plant on my plane end of the month and get this thing running. And really appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Bye, Eric.
All right.